Today we will finish the topic of rock formations that resemble wagon wheel hubs and go through the findings in the national parks of the USA. There are really a lot of them. But it would be a shame not to look at least some of them, so the video will be a little longer. Of course, these rock formations are also related to the geology of their surroundings, as we will show. In the previous video, we showed how these rock formations were formed and how it is related to natural gas extraction, so-called fracking, and very likely to earthquakes. But gas pockets are found all over the world, deep underground. You might recall some of the mining accidents that have been related to gas explosions. It seems as if our world is literally sitting on a time bomb. So let's take a virtual tour of some areas of the US national parks. The first is Monument Valley in Arizona, which is home to several rock formations that have been given names. Let's move on the timeline to see the details better. You see, the situation is exactly the same for all of these formations. Accumulated mud sediments that have hardened into rock. But let's look at the top of this rock formation. Do you see it there? It is the center of a mudflow, again with mud deposits. The original reservoir was probably located to the southeast. And here is another hub and the same image. We can go on and on like this. Some of these rock formations have already been broken up by erosion, so we don't recognize that we're looking at the same formations. Here the situation is a little different. The center is located on the south side and a rocky ridge extends from it. Do you see that shadow where the pond was located and which acted as a mud funnel? It is likely that a crack occurred here, through which a mass of mud sediments was also ejected under great pressure. The mirror image of these formations could be seen in the fossilized mudflows in karst caves, like the ones in these photos. They have been closed for a long time and are evidence of gas leaks under great pressure. The layers seen on the left of the image have been pushed high above the surrounding terrain in some places. In many areas, the gas has created gas pockets that have been preserved by the rock. The remains of these mud volcanoes are cave chimneys. This means that the gas pressure was released through the liquid mud sediments and everything closed up again. We can see this in a short video of an active mud volcano. As you can see, these rock formations in many cases have their origins below the surface, where today's caves were formed. Brigham's tomb, originally called Saddleback, is now in Utah Territory and has exactly the same origin. Notice that it is connected to the rock ridge we saw a moment ago. Now let's move back in time to show what these rock monuments are located on. You often have to play with the timeline. Most scans are between 2014 and 2017. Some images from different periods will disappear from the timeline if you zoom in. Some images may not be visible if you are virtually high above the surface. Sometimes you need to be very patient.
Wow!
We are home. Do you see how many there are? Some look like they've been ripped apart. They're not complete, but some seem to be pretty well preserved. They're lying in one direction, as if they were laid down by some force. Probably a huge tsunami. What do you think? I'll try to highlight the image. It can be seen that these colossi are located at different depths. Most of the land in these national parks belong to various Native American tribes. Specifically, this land belongs to the Navajo Nation. The Navajo people hold these vast areas sacred and refer to them as the site of creation. You know, I sometimes wonder why the Native American nations were decimated by the Spanish and the Anglo-Saxons. Maybe it was their wisdom and knowledge, which was not desirable to the wider population. Do you remember our tale about the whale from the Nazca Plain that erected these columns in the sea? But let's look at another area, and that is the petrified forest in Arizona. There is also a place with igneous mudstone, but in this case a mud vent did not form there. So the pressure below must have been relieved in another way. Look at this. Something very dramatic happened here. In detail, it looks like a shot of matter with a circular hole. It is about 4,200 feet long, which is very close to the diameter of the columns. But this figure may be inaccurate due to image distortion. Unfortunately, we can't read more from the image. But it is possible that we are looking at one of the vertically submerged giants. And right next to it is a reservoir. And objects below the surface are starting to appear in the surrounding area. I will highlight the image. This is also a strange rock formation, and there is a geometry of lines hidden around it as well as a large field of water reservoirs. Lines still converge at the site of some reservoirs, like traces of the ancient anchoring of the Earth's lattice structure. And here is another one. And there are other columns visible, although the picture is not very good. Many of these columns have certainly become part of karst caves, although we do not see it, because the size is enormous. Moreover, the cavities are filled with rock fragments and limestone. Only in some cases have there been reported cases where people have discovered a piece of smooth and shiny wall inside these underground spaces. As you can see, the size of these water reservoirs is similar to the size of natural waterholes in Australia. But we also have to account for significant deformation of many of them. The United States is home to the largest number of caves, although this claim may be misleading. For example, we don't know what lies beneath Siberia and elsewhere. I have a feeling that these columns could have been used for underground tunnels and bases. We're getting too deep into so-called conspiracy theories now. But it seems we live in a time when many conspiracy theories are becoming true. You see, the inside diameter is about 230 feet. The dimensions of the reservoirs in Australia range from about 200 to 270 feet. This tank did not survive the disaster. There are many similar reservoirs here. You can explore this area yourself. We say goodbye to the Petrified Forest National Park with this picture. You probably can't see it. I'll try to highlight the image. These are traces of a truss structure. But let's move on to the next national park. We'll move to Arches National Park in Utah. Although there are many strange places in the USA, we'll only visit a few of them. Here you can see the silhouettes of two columns again on the north side of the reservation. They are almost invisible. On the western side are several circles that, according to the official narrative, represent modern irrigation. Yes, because there is groundwater under these circles and it is easier to pump it from the well in the center. Many of these circles are located in deserts and are almost invisible. They were literally put there to cover something up. Right next to it we see an area with columnar formations. We have this situation documented on the Sumerian tablet. Giants sailing in the sea, they put limestone blocks on the ground, and in this photo we see these limestone wheels. I believe that the tablets depict the time of the Great Flood. I also don't think this is a Sumerian scuba diver. If we're talking about scenes from the biblical flood, this giant is most likely blowing lime onto the earth, which he has in a huge bellows. The photo doesn't take up the entire clay tablet, but notice that the giant at the bottom doesn't have a breathing bladder. This is essentially the legend of Gilgamesh, and by extension Noah, and many others who appear in legends all over the world. The Book of Enoch says that the waters above the sky, on the earth and under the earth came together. This means that the atmosphere would have to disappear for a period of time. That's not possible. But that's a story for the next series dedicated to the shape of the Earth. But now back to the topic. Here we are again looking at one of the rock monuments, which is unfortunately already eroded. The crack extended north, and this originally mud mound is very similar in shape to another one. We find it in the Sahara. And there's one more. I am convinced that all the mesas of the world were formed in the same way, by pushing a huge mass of rock high above the surface. Other formations shine through beneath the surface. There may also be a karst cave here. Mill Canyon is a site of dinosaur footprints and bones dating back to the Cretaceous period, about 112 million years ago. What? When we realize what happened here and that deep beneath the surface lie monuments created by intelligence, what are dinosaur remains doing in the same layer? Look at this footprint. Dinosaurs walked the earth when the surface was still liquid. In the White Sands area of New Mexico, Human footprints have been found beneath the surface. Not the footprints of apes, or supposed human ancestors. Many child footprints have also been found there. While dinosaur footprints on the surface date back 112 million years, human footprints at white sands, originally found at the bottom of a dried-up lake, date back 21,000 to 23,000 years. How is this possible? Where have these beings disappeared to? In the case of the dinosaurs, it was likely starvation in adverse climatic conditions. But how did they end up so deep in the sediments? Is it possible that they sank into these still muddy sediments under their own weight and decomposed naturally? How else could their bodies be covered by such a massive layer of sediment? And how is it possible that we find their traces on the surface, while the bodies are found below the surface? This would confirm the fact that the Ica stones are not a fake. They document a time when people walked the earth with dinosaurs. But they still can't imagine it. Were these animals really as bloodthirsty as they are presented to us practically everywhere? The age of the stones is estimated at least 12,000 years. That is, the first ones. Because the other stones are already imitations. Although these stones have become a subject of dispute between experts and amateur researchers, it cannot be denied that some scenes have similar symbolism to some Egyptian or Aztec symbols. Only without the presence of large lizards. However, it is possible that these dinosaurs were replaced by the symbol of the snake in later cultures. Snakes are found in all cultures. The Bible also refers to the snake as a dragon or an ancient serpent. If you look at some old illustrations or building decorations, you can see a creature that looks like a dinosaur and a snake at the same time. It often has wings. And this is a detail from the Ta Prohm Temple in Cambodia. You're looking at a stegosaurus, even though mainstream science denies it. Something is wrong here. And it seems like our Earth hasn't formed in billions of years. Did these lizards become modern dragons? But that's out of the question. And let's go back to the national parks of the United States. Badlands, South Dakota. You all probably know this area where there are strange rock formations. I have marked the water reservoirs that are located here. They are far from all of them. When I zoom in on the image, the silhouettes of the columns on which these water tanks are located appear again. Here we have our familiar reservoirs again, like ancient scars from the anchoring of the global network. It is the same place from which the hub of the Wagon Wheel originated. Unfortunately, some places already somewhat vaguely resemble the geometric shape of a reservoir. And in the neighborhood there is another area of water reservoirs and the same picture. Look at those lines that converge towards the center. It's the same as, for example, Australian watering holes. Here we're looking at a water-filled crack. This would also be the anchor hole in the column. If this hole were to close, the pressure of the accumulated gas would push the rock to the surface, similar to the rock formations we saw in Arizona. Crater Lake, Oregon. We won't see much in the lake itself, but the surroundings are even more interesting. This is this area. The image comes from a deep scan. We're actually looking at what's under the surface and not just that. There are parts of the lattice structure preserved here, or the global web. Whatever you like better. Another trace of anchorage. There was supposed to be another water reservoir here, but it apparently has not been preserved. Again, strange lines converge to this point from all directions. And here begins the complicated network of geometric connections and other points where it all connected. Some of the connecting anchors are almost invisible. The traces of the supporting beams look more like cracks because water is seeping in. Even in the bright parts of the image, you can still see parts of the structure. They are probably below the surface. I will highlight the image. And here this area is even more interesting. Groundwater seeps in here, creating a green carpet. It's a little ragged, true, but there's something extra. Modern development here is being built on something much older. At the top of the image, I highlighted all the visible lines that represent the part of broken global web. This construction is followed by other lines that have a different shape. They run through the vegetation and look like forest paths, but they are not natural in nature. In the future, family houses and squares could appear here that resemble butterfly antennae, as in many places in the world, especially the USA, Africa, or Australia. It seems that we managed to capture part of the column in the picture. The presence of water tanks here will confirm that this is indeed this colossus. Death Valley. Hottest, driest and lowest national park. We are now in 2015 on the timeline and we will try to find a better quality image. As you can see, something is appearing, but it's not it. This lines comes from the scanner and it's hard to tell if something is appearing there. It doesn't look like LiDAR to me. I don't know much about this technology, but this way of imaging looks like a more advanced technology. If any of you know anything about it, please leave your opinion in the comments. But if such technology exists, the question arises, why don't we have such high-quality images from, for example, the Moon and Mars? Maybe the reason is somewhere else. There's nothing to scan. But I'll leave the sarcasm aside and let's see what this valley actually looks like. This is probably where it starts. It looks like a salt pan, and the edges look like something fell in and sank. Let's look at these mudslides. From the shape, you could tell that the material from the landslide was literally absorbed into the bottom of the basin. I'll show you that in a moment. There are an incredible number of these mudslides here, and they come from both sides of the valley. Do you remember the exact same semicircular landslides in the Andes? Below one is a circular structure where lithium is mined. We can actually talk about Plato's concentric circles. Unfortunately, I still can't find the right picture. I'll try something else. It's still not what we're looking for, but we've found this area. It's green because of the groundwater that seeps to the surface here. Notice the geometric shape that even the vegetation reveals. Better images are surprisingly only appearing here in 2021. We look at the upper basin and you can see that this rock was literally boiling. Some of the images on Google Earth are really very bizarre. Do you see that dark center? It really does look like the site of an impact of something huge into the liquid rock that spilled out into the surrounding area. But that's also the case with the Eye of the Sahara and other lesser-known geological formations. We'll move south and look at some of the details. I'll play around with the timeline a bit to see if we can get a better picture. It's a little better depicted here. You can see how many mudflows there are that have been flowing into the valley from both sides. And here we are again looking at semicircular or fan-shaped mudslides. The edges seem suspiciously blackened to me, like some other sections in the valley. We saw blackened areas around the circular structure in Salar de Olaroz, where it looked more like molten asphalt. Look at this. The rock here has created bizarre shapes that resemble a stormy sea or some strange twigs. But we can't see that on the surface. Let us recall the situation in Salar de Olaroz in Argentina. We're approaching the southern tip of Death Valley. These landslides are practically everywhere. It's like something was sprayed here. This dark material is being brought up from under mudslides, just like around the Salar de Olaroz lithium mine in Argentina. This area is definitely worth exploring further, but we'll move on. The lines from the depth scanner appear here again, and in this place something is visible below the surface. Only here does a field of gigantic columns appear. I highlighted the video and notice how the rock literally spilled over these giants. It's quite difficult to highlight in the video. I processed the still images in Photoshop. Do you see them there? Look how many there are here. And here we can see beautifully how the dark rock has flowed over this column. In the southern part of the desert, it can be seen almost everywhere. What? Did you notice that? There's something else there. I'll zoom in on the picture. It's hard to see, but we have some strange objects here. They look like the ones on the Nazca Plains. And there's something else. Strange U-shaped mounds. I will highlight the video. Many lines lead from these objects, which most likely arose here as traces of the original structure, which was apparently attached to the columns below them. And other U-shaped mounds. But these are not the only formations. You can also find exactly the same ones along the Nile Delta, in the Sahara, in Iraq, and actually throughout the Middle East. But I think we can find them anywhere in the desert areas. Let's remember some. There are quite a lot of them here, as if someone scattered them here. There's something similar in the top left, but there's some activity. This is also a very strange pattern with 6 circles around the perimeter and one in the middle. I believe it is a spiritual symbol, as we will explain in a moment. The main parts of this pattern have been cleared of desert vegetation, and the whole thing is connected by lines that connect to one another and end under the hills. It seems that this place is used as a landing field for airplanes. Maybe some research is being done here. Unfortunately, the place is not marked in any way. If any of you know what it is, let me know in the comments below the video. And here are more circles. It's very hard to see, but these circles are connected by lines, and the whole thing gives the image of the Star of David. The Star of David is 2 mirror image triangles, like pyramids, intersecting in the center. I believe that this is a symbol of the union of the material and spiritual worlds with a single God in the center. So the unification of the world, which was actually also the time of Atlantis. It's right on the column. Let's look at something else. Baikonur is home to the Cosmodrome, which was a highly guarded area during the Soviet era. This meant that the vast area was not allowed to be photographed from above. What can be seen on Google Earth today is absolutely breathtaking. As I mentioned, many military, air, and space bases were built in these exposed, but also very remote locations. This includes Area 51. But more on that another time. As I look at it, the video is already 3/4 of an hour long and I haven't even shown everything. Dead Valley took us a little longer. There's still the Grand Canyon and a few other very interesting locations, and I think it would be a shame not to see them. So I'm going to make another video about US national parks, and at the same time I'll be preparing material for a series about the shape of our Earth. That will probably be a very time-consuming topic. And finally, I'll show you something else. We've seen some Sumerian tablets that hold great secrets. But this one shows giants who have ships and are carrying what are probably limestone or stone beams. Look at the detail. They have a hole and are attached to ships. But the ships are only imaginary. In reality, these giants moved in the sky like Nephilim. And we already know that the word Nephilis means cloud. This find comes from the Peruvian Andes in the mountains above the Nazca Plain. Do you see it there? There is even a spiral here, and if you look closely at the Sumerian tablet, you will see a large number of spirals. This is not a symbol for the sea, and the fish here are not real fish. But that is not relevant to today's topic. This is the bottom of the drying Aral Sea in Kazakhstan. It could be the same object, and you've probably noticed how twisted this part is. I think this sea was left to die on purpose. There are incredible fragments of the ancient world at its bottom. And thirdly, the McMurdo Research Base in Antarctica. I believe that research into life in Antarctica is just a side activity, and very likely something completely different is being researched there. To avoid making the video too long, I'll say goodbye for now, and don't forget, what is below is also above. Or what resides above is missing below. But it's beautiful, isn't it? Have a nice day.